When I was 15 years old, I wanted my parents to get divorced. And no, I didn't want them to get divorced because they were arguing all the time, or because they were angry with each other, or because things weren't working, or because there was domestic violence in the house. No, I simply wanted them to get divorced because I looked around my suburban house and looked at my cushy suburban life and came to the conclusion that it was all too easy. Now, for context, I didn't grow up in an upper middle class house. I didn't even grow up in a middle class house. I grew up in a lower middle class house. We were just wealthy enough to not be poor. And that was due to my mother being able to turn pennies into nickels, nickels into dimes, dimes into quarters, quarters into dollar bills, and dollar bills into 20s. She was a financial savant when it came to saving and investing and living on less than what she made, because she didn't make much. And she still doesn't make much. But even with this being the case, I looked around at our suburban lifestyle and I said it was too easy. I didn't like it. It felt wrong to me. And it felt wrong because all of the people I idolized when I was 15 years old didn't come from where I came from. The prime example of this was the first rapper / R&B singer I really got into, and that was August Alsina. I remember being 15 years old. I had just got grounded for smoking weed and getting caught for the first time. And my parents told me that I couldn't leave the house for 2 months. So for 2 months, every day after school, I had to come home, do my homework, and then I just had to sit at home. I couldn't hang out with my friends. I couldn't go anywhere except for the YMCA to play basketball. And during those 2 months, I didn't have a lot to do at home once I came back from the gym. So I'd sit on my computer and I'd go to iHeartRadio and I'd just listen to music. And I remember the song Kissin' on My Tattoos came on the iHeartRadio. And I thought that shit was awesome. That was my favorite song. And after listening to that song, I decided to look up his album that was pretty popular at the time, Testimony. And I thought that shit was incredible. Benediction with Rick Ross, Testify, Make It Home. That album was amazing. I still think it's a classic. And in fact, I think it's the best album I've ever listened to. But when I listened to his stories and I listened to his life, and really after I dove into his life and his upbringing, I saw that he came up in a very different environment than me. And I wanted to be like him. And I looked around my house and I looked around my school district. And I looked around at the lives my peers were living. A lot of the people I went to school with were much better off than my family and I. A lot of the people I went to school with were pretty wealthy, in fact. White collar, making pretty good money. And I looked around and I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And being a 15-year-old kid, I thought the best way to simulate being raised in the gutter of New Orleans and having your brother shot and killed when you were a teenager was to stoke arguments between my parents to the point where there'd be a fight every night. I thought that was a great idea. I thought, well, I'm not from the hood, so I might as well make this as hard as I can on myself so that I can have something to say, so that I can have some problem experience to come from. Because I felt like if I wanted to be like this guy, I had to have something to talk about. I had to have something that was holding me back. I had to have something I could overcome. Now, of course, this was the dumbest idea ever. Really stupid, in fact. One of my dumber ideas, and I've had a lot of dumb ideas in my 25 years of living. But I tell you this story because my thoughts on comfort haven't changed at all. In fact, they've only gotten worse. The idea that my life is too comfortable has always eaten at me. And over the years, I've sought to make it harder on myself. I've sought to make it less comfortable. I eat shit food. Now, I'm not talking about McDonald's or Burger King or Arby's or Wendy's. I'm not talking about fast food. I'm talking about cheap food. I eat 69-cent mac and cheese every single day. I eat protein powder and peanut butter. I eat eggs. That's it. Oh, cans of tuna. My mistake. I eat dumb cheap. I drive a regular ass car. I live in a regular ass apartment. I work out every day. I don't go to bars or clubs. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I don't do any of that shit. Now, I don't tell you all of this to try and paint the picture that I'm holier than thou, or that I'm some savior you should idolize. I'm sure you probably didn't think that anyways. I hope not. But rather, I'll tell you that because I really want to get this message out there. I really believe comfort is the enemy. And I don't believe it in the David Goggins sense, where you want to torture yourself every single day. Though my thoughts on that may change over time. But rather, I see it really plainly. Allowing comfort into your life opens a door. And once that door is open, you don't know what's going to come in. And in my experience, every time that door is open, bad things come in. Things I don't want in my house come in. People I don't want in my house come in. Energy I don't want in my house comes in. Spirits I don't want in my house comes in. Behavior I don't want in my house comes in. And once it comes in the house, it's really difficult to kick out. You know this. I know this. Anytime you have a house party, if somebody invites somebody over that you're not too fond of, it's pretty easy to kick one person out. But even so, it's not always the most fun thing to do. And it doesn't always go over well with your other party guests. And once you get 2 or 3 people in the house that you don't want, or even worse, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people in the house you don't want, then it gets really difficult to kick them out, especially if they're friends, because they'll gang up on you because they don't care if it's your house. They'll tell you to fuck off. That's what happens when you open that door. And in my eyes, that door is comfort. Now, this idea really cemented in my brain after I watched Fight Club, because I looked at the plot of that movie and I've read through the deep analysis of how crazy that story really is. But I like to look at it on the surface. I like to look at it purely on the surface. You have 2 boys who start a fight club, and they get a bunch of guys to meet up in a basement to kick the shit out of each other. And then they go live in a dusty old house. They kick it back together. They build something and they conquer the world. Seems like a pretty sick life to me. And though I don't advocate for what they did in Fight Club, if you watch the movie, you know. If you didn't, go watch. The end scene is boom. But I do advocate for the way they live. I think comfort is the enemy. And I think the more of it you have, the more of it you'll want. And the more of it you want, the more you'll get. And the more you get, the more you'll despise it. And the more you despise it, the more you'll want more, to hopefully not despise it anymore. And down and down and down and down and down you go. The downward spiral begins and it ends at the bottom of a dark abyss. But not only that, but I simply look at comfort as the biggest obstacle to reaching your full potential. And I don't even want to have this be some sort of motivational rah-rah speech, but rather I want it to be cut and dry. You don't know what your potential is because you're nowhere close to it. I don't know what my potential is because I'm nowhere near it. I'm closer than I was yesterday. I'm closer than I was the day before. But the more comfort I allow in my life, the further and further that potential gets from me. The harder it is to see in the horizon. And so I would rather have that sight closer to me, so I know what I'm aiming at and I get a better sense of what that could be. Because in my eyes, the more realistic you are with what your potential could actually be, the more likely you are to actually achieve it. There's a law in Robert Greene's Daily Laws that states, and I may misquote it, but you'll get the principle. Those who are realistic in their ambitions are more likely to realize them. Because while you may think that having a wide, grandiose vision will expand your opportunities, expand your potential, expand your limits, it actually shrinks it. Because you'll chase after every squirrel and you'll catch none of them. Instead, what you should do is narrow your scope, be more realistic with your limits, and you'll actually be more likely to achieve what you want to achieve. And in this case, you'll be more likely to actually live up to your potential and see what it could actually be, because you won't be here and there and here and there, chasing after things that you'll never catch, wasting all your energy on 20 things instead of chasing after 1 or 3 or 5, something that you can actually go after with your full force. So if you feel like there's something gnawing at you, if you feel like there's some beast in your belly that's just taking nibbles, taking bites out of your soul, out of your spirit, out of your energy, if you feel like there's a leak in your energy reserves, it's probably because there's too much comfort in your life. There's too much ease in your life. You know that there's no real consequence if you fail. There's no real price for you falling on your face. And once you remove the bumper lanes from your life, the comfort, the ease, the pleasure, you realize that you gotta be careful. You gotta make wise choices. You have to take diligent, strategic action. And you realize you don't have a lot of room for error. You can't afford to get fucked up. You can't afford to miss days in the gym. You can't afford to miss time on your business. You can't afford to press on the brakes at all. Because if you do, the gutter's waiting for you. And it doesn't care what you look like, what you believe in, or who you are. It'll take you with open arms. And with that being said, if you gained value from this video, subscribe to the channel, follow my TikTok at The Art of Stoicism / The New Da Vinci. I'm also on Instagram at The New Da Vinci, at The Art of Stoicism. And get ready for the next one, because I'm not always right, but I'm always real. With that being said, much love, peace. This is The New Da Vinci.